All right, guys, so it's that time of year. Maybe it's the end of the season, maybe it's the off season. You're kind of itching to get, back after it when it comes to rebuilding properties or improving properties because your season didn't go well, let's face it. And maybe it did go well. That doesn't mean that's, just because the season goes bad, that's not the only time you need to improve upon your property. There are a lot of different ways that you can improve upon your property. We've talked about a lot of them. But there's one that goes kind of unnoticed a lot of times. We talk about timber stand improvement, which timber stand improvement method is going to be best for you. There's a lot of different choices. You can go and you can hinge cut like a lot of people tend to do because they see it on the internet. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's a good fit, sometimes it isn't. The hack and squirt method is no different. There's a time and a place for it. Hacking those trees, applying herbicide. There's a whole method as to how you should do it, when you should do it, and the type of trees that you should do it on and the size of the trees, things like that. And then you got loggers coming in and doing their thing, and then it's hard to get a logger that aligns with your goals. So timber stand improvement's a huge part of it. Food plotting, the food plot planning. Did you have enough food? Do you have to clear out areas so that you can add more food? The stand locations, you gotta mess with the stand locations, move them a little bit, move them here or there. Maybe you got busted a lot in one spot, so now you gotta change it. Change up your spots, your trail camera locations, all those things. Those are things we always think about. It's not the thing that I'm gonna talk about today though. And in fact, not to prolong this a little bit longer, but I have a backstory. And this is very relevant for everybody who's looking to improve upon their property, because I was on a trip to help a client. I was in northeast Missouri, and this client had a large portion of their property and like natural grasses, things like that. And a lot of times grasses are nice, they're good cover, but from a browse perspective, deer don't generally spend a lot of time browsing on just grasses. They're more of a forbs animal, so they're gonna eat a lot more forbs. They're gonna get a lot more nutritious or nutritional benefit from eating these forbs and not the grasses. So you need to have a diversity so that you get some of that cover and you get some of the food. And it was predominantly just thick grasses, and the deer weren't really using it. And so he said to me, Brett, how do we go about solving this problem? How do I get this so it's more diverse, this good grassland area? It's pretty monotonous right now. We're only dealing with a few species of grass in here. They'll occasionally bed on the edge of it, but they're just not really using it like I'd like them to. What do I got to do to plant, new grasses in here? And sure, we could go in and we could broadcast spread, certain things over the top. We could try and reintroduce oak saplings, create some diversity, which is something I like doing. Till this up. We could disc this up. We could do a bunch of things, like almost replant this like it's a food plot, but, add switchgrass, maybe some little blue stem, big blue stem, things like that, get a little diversity in there. I said, it's way more simple than that. It is and it isn't. There's something that we can do to restart the process here, and that step that you should take is prescribed fire. That's the most underrated, or one of the most underrated practices used when it comes to habitat improvement, and I get why. It can be scary. There are right conditions. We'll get into all that stuff, but prescribed fire is definitely one that can improve your property greatly. Okay, why? What's actually happening when you use prescribed fire? Well, basically, think about it this way, and there's a couple places you should and shouldn't prescribe fire. So if you got this grassland and you got the right conditions, low humidity or a high humidity day, the wind in the right direction, create your fire breaks in certain locations, and you don't want the wind to drive that, to drive the fire. So let's say we have a wind, coming in this direction. We want our fire to be moving in that direction. And the thing that's gonna push the fire in that direction is the fuel that we're gonna be burning. So that's kind of the strategy of how you go about doing it. But the whole reason that we're doing it is that it's gonna burn off a lot of this, these grasses, these monotonous grasses that you currently have that are choking out pretty much everything because they get tall, they get 4 or 5 feet tall. Sunlight's not really hitting the forest floor like you'd want it to, or just the earth in general. And then when that happens, you don't get new herbaceous growth. And if you don't get new herbaceous growth, you don't have high quality, nutritious food for the deer. A lot of times, that fresh food or the fresh growth is where the best, most nutritional food is. You're not getting that in these grasslands that you could almost consider a wasteland or a biological desert, to a certain standpoint. So Basically coming in and using prescribed fire is going to wipe this clean. Another perk to using this is if you have a lot of leaf litter, which, let's face it, these are hunting properties. They're in the woods. There's going to be leaf litter. That leaf litter, what that does is it's kind of a smaller version of what timber stand improvement does. So a lot of times you recommend timber stand improvement to create more cover at the deer's level. Maybe you have a big, tall forest and it's got a canopy and it's not allowing sunlight to hit the forest floor. Sunlight can't hit the forest floor. You're not going to get herbaceous growth or natural browse at the deer's level because the sun can't, it's part of that, the puzzle piece. You can't grow something without sun. So if the sun can't get through, nothing can grow. So that's what's going on here. That leaf litter is almost like that canopy in the forest. We need to remove that. So in this particular instance, it was a kind of a grassland. Didn't have a ton of leaf litter, but nonetheless, burning was the right idea because it was kind of still doing the same thing. It was blocking a lot of that sunlight and not allowing sunlight to hit the forest floor. No new herbaceous growth with high protein content, high nutritional value was able to grow. So by burning that, we solved that. And not only that, we put nutrients back in to the ground. We almost fertilized the ground as well as, it was like planting a food plot by only using one technique, which was burning, because you're putting nutrients back into the ground, which allow new vegetation to grow, which is going to be much more palatable for deer, much more nutritious for deer, and much more attractive and much more diverse. And diversity is one of the keys when it comes to creating the ultimate hunting property. You need diversity. Any one thing is never great, and it makes a property hard. It might be a good property, but if you don't have diversity, if you don't have edge, if you don't have different things that for these deer to consume or to use as habitat, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot to a certain extent and just making it harder on yourself to hunt. They might be there, but if you don't have diversity, it just makes it a little bit tougher. So the one time that I don't recommend using prescribed fire is we're going to go back to that really mature timber, that mature forest. Now, if we go in there and we expect awesome results from burning off all the leaf litter in a mature timber forest, it's not going to happen. You're not going to see the growth that you might see a little bit. You might burn off some small saplings, some leaf litter, some things like that, but you're not going to see the herbaceous growth that you're going to want to see. And there's a reason for that. Why would that be? Sunlight again. So if we don't get rid of the structures or the canopies that are blocking that sunlight, we can burn all we want, burn all that leaf litter up we want, have the most beautiful looking natural seed bed, dirt, burnt matter on the ground. But if the sunlight can't get through, nothing is going to grow. Very little is going to grow. So we got to make sure that timber is in the right state. We got to have pockets or openings or thinned areas so that the sunlight can hit the forest floor. And then nature's food plot is what we'll basically call this, restarts the process. The burning adds the fertilizer. There's a lot of different, ways that basically these seeds or these little, these seeds, will hit the forest floor, start to regrow, restart the process. It's nature's food plot. You're going to have tons of diversity, tons of cover at the deer's level, and tons of browse at the deer's level. So you're kind of putting all the puzzle pieces together. You're gonna have cover, food, all in these areas for the deer. So it's gonna create the ultimate habitat. Now, I would recommend that you don't just go burn for fun. Do it in strategic areas. Think about predominant winds. Think about what thermals do in certain areas. Do I have to walk through this area to get to my hot spot? If those things are the case, well, you got to sit back and think. Am I going to be disrupting things by walking through this area? And maybe you got to change your routes or do things like that. And maybe you got to look at it from a habitat standpoint, and maybe not so much a hunter sometimes. Is this what's best for the timber or the deer as a whole? Maybe it's still going to benefit them. Maybe it's not, the best for hunting, but sometimes, you don't plan a food plot to hunt over. You plan a food plot because it's going to benefit the deer. It's going to help the deer get through the season, things like that. You can kind of look at it this way, but best case scenario, it does both. So those are kind of some of the options that you got to weigh out when using prescribed fire. And I get it. You kind of got to have experience almost to use prescribed fire. And if you don't have experience, how are you going to get experience? Well, there's a couple different ways. One, contact your local DNR. They might know crews that actually come out and do this. With enough research on the right times of the year, the right conditions, you can do it with a group of friends, and I think you have pretty good luck with it as long as you were careful about it and really just paid attention to all those details. But another little secret that I like to use sometimes is I like to get like a local fire department, like a volunteer fire department. A lot of times these guys are always looking for training. These guys are always looking for places to do prescribed burns. What better spot than your piece of timber to get a group of guys who know how to deal with fire, know all the dangers of fire, and are going to keep your woods from burning down than a local department. And you know what? They want the experience. So it's a win-win situation for everybody going into these local volunteer fire departments and saying, hey, you know, I'm looking to create some better deer habitat. Here's what I'm thinking. I just like to do a prescribed burn through this 5-10 acre area. Something you think you guys could help me with, get a little experience for your guys, just using equipment and doing whatever they got to do. Chances are they're gonna take you up on that, because they're always looking for more experience. So when it all comes down to it, guys, prescribed fire is definitely one of the most underrated improvements, and I really encourage you to at least research it, look into it a little bit more, look into your property a little bit more, and decide, is this a good match? It's not going to be for everybody, and there's times and places in which you could use it, and I kind of stated that already, but don't overlook it, because it's one way that you can almost supplement other improvements. If you go in and do some timber stand improvement and then you burn, it's a win-win. Once again, you're getting rid of that leaf litter and you're allowing sunlight to hit the forest floor. Watch out, deer habitat. Like, it's going to get crazy in there, and all the best ways possible for these deer. So at the end of the day, there are a lot of improvements that you guys are looking at to make this off season and in future off seasons. But prescribed fire, it might be one of the most important. So think about that one, guys.